Members of the jury, if you didn't know before, you sure know now that taking risks can take your life. I want to thank you for your time and your attention. And again, I want to extend our sincere condolences for the tragic loss that Andy Little's family has faced after this accident. And I want to remind you that today you are here to decide which party negligently caused this accident. And that decision is not to be based on sympathy. Yes, this is a tragic event, but your decision is to be based on the facts, the evidence that we presented to you today. You've seen all of the evidence. The plaintiff has given their closing argument, and now it's our turn to show you exactly how the evidence fits together. Show you exactly how Andy Little's risky behavior negligently caused this accident. On Halloween night 2004, you saw that Andy Little was drinking and driving. It's not disputed that Andy Little was drinking beer before he even got behind the wheel that night. And around 9:30 p.m., shortly after leaving his home, he goes out and he buys more beer. You saw the receipt. This is about 9:30 p.m. at the Buffalo Chip near the cemetery, and it's for a 6-pack. We also saw that there was blood alcohol. There was alcohol in Andy Little's blood system. And more than that, recall that Andy Little was driving with a bottle of liquor in between his legs. Remember that Andy Little is driving on Halloween night near the cemetery. Now the plaintiff has tried to argue that Dana Mylanta and her crew planted that beer, but that just doesn't add up. Members of the jury, Dana Mylanta and her crew were out there that evening performing a public service. There was a power outage, and they were out there with their spotlights in that big bucket truck late at night trying to solve the problem. Do you think that Dana Mylanta and her crew had that bottle of booze ready to plant in case they got into a situation like this? The plaintiff did not present any evidence that there was foul play amongst Dana Mylanta and her crew. And let's think about Andy's risky behavior. His drinking and driving is wholly consistent. His driving behavior is wholly consistent with someone who has been drinking. He's speeding down that road without headlights. The bucket truck backs out. There are no skid marks, no lights, and there's no way that Andy Little was going 25 miles per hour like Denny Shepard says. And let's talk about Denny Shepard for a minute. Because you'll notice that the plaintiff basically rests its entire case on the testimony of Denny Shepard, the police officer that investigated this whole accident. But members of the jury, Denny Shepard's investigation is seriously flawed. Years ago, Big A had to turn off his power because he didn't pay his bill. And now he gets to stick it to them. He's done it once before, and he's doing it again. And how does he do it? He doesn't test things like this. Members of the jury, Denny Shepard found this bag in Andy Little's car, and he didn't test to see what's in it, that green leafy substance. What do you think is in there? What do you think Andy Little was doing that night by the cemetery on Halloween? Denny Shepard didn't think that Andy Little's drinking contributed to this accident. He contaminated the blood sample. Denny Shepard isn't a doctor. He's not an EMT. But he stuck that needle right in Andy Little's chest to get the blood sample, and now it's contaminated. And now you, as members of the jury, do not have the concrete evidence of how much alcohol was in Andy Little's system. And on the other hand, you have Dana Mylanta. Recall that Dana Mylanta has worked for Big A for 15 years as one of its most trusted employees. And on Halloween night, she's not at home with her kids trick-or-treating. No, she's out there fixing a power outage with her crew. They're out there diligently using their spotlights, trying to find the transformer pole and the fuse that is out and trying to fix the problem. And when it comes time to back out of the cemetery, she looks both ways carefully, as she always does. Her crew doesn't see any lights. They don't see any cars coming. She backs out like anyone would, puts the car in drive, and that's when Andy Little comes barreling in. Again, I'll remind you that we're not here to place any moral blame on Andy Little's actions. We're simply here to show you that Andy Little took risks, and those risks took his life. Members of the jury, right now is closing arguments. Because the plaintiff has brought this claim, the rules allow them to come up for rebuttal. After I sit down, the plaintiff will have an opportunity to have one final say. And the fact that I don't come back up here isn't because I don't want to, because I do. I do want to respond to the plaintiff's arguments. But they're entitled to that rebuttal because it is their burden to prove to you, beyond a preponderance of the evidence, meaning it's more likely than not, that Dana Mylanta and Big A negligently caused this accident. Members of the jury, the plaintiff has not proven that today. If Andy Little wasn't drinking, why weren't there any full cans of beer from that six-pack found? If Andy Little had his headlights on, why didn't Dana and her crew see him? And members of the jury, if Andy Little had tried to avoid the bucket truck, why weren't there any skid marks? Andy Little took risks, and it's tragic, but those risks took his life. Thank you.